Hello, my pottery posse, and welcome to my studio. I'm here with my friend's broken mug, and we're here to fix it. Now, she tried to fix it herself with some glue, but inevitably, it didn't last. I could try to glue it back together with a low fire and either some low fire glaze or gold. However, gold is expensive and I don't have any. And I'd be nervous that if I did a low fire and refired it at all, the decal would fire off, although it appears to be under a clear glaze. The other possibility is that the glaze would bubble up because I don't know the original cone or temperature that it was originally fired at. So what we're going to do instead is use a grinding disc. Before we get grinding, however, we need to take the correct safety precautions. Make sure that you have an N95 mask in case there's any dust that's created, which is why it's very important to have water. We'll talk about that in a little bit. This dust is called silica dust, and it's extremely dangerous to your health when ingested. And after failing to put this mask on, we need to make sure we have adequate eye protection in the event that a piece chips off, breaks, and comes flying up at you. Lastly, if you have obnoxiously long hair like I do, you need to keep that out of your way so it doesn't get caught up in the grinding process. Let me just put this up. There we go. And we are ready to get to work. As you can see, the disc I got is a double-sided diamond grinding disc, with one side being a number 120 and the other being a number 400 for finer sanding. Now, I've never had a grinding disc before, and I experimented with some failed pieces before attempting to fix this guy. And here's why. You remember that? Yeah, that's why I experiment. So anyways, we're going to start off with the 120 side so we can really get those handle knobs down. The first thing to know about using a grinding pad like this is that you have to have ample water. If you don't, what happens is you'll feel a lot of tension and you'll hit a really dry spot, and then the vessel will just slip right out of your hands and your piece will get damaged or broken, and then your hand and possibly other parts of you will come crashing down onto the grinding disc and get really roughed up. We don't want that. Water is extremely important, so make sure you have a loaded sponge in one hand to squeeze onto the disc as you're working. Then when you've run out of water, stop grinding, rinse the residue off the disc, reload your sponge, and begin again. This is a time-consuming process, but it can save a piece or something sentimental such as this mug. So take your time, don't be in a rush. The second most important thing to remember, which is a mouthful, is your grip, the position you're sitting in, and the point at which your piece is on the grinding disc itself. Now, just because you have ample water does not mean that the piece won't get thrown out of your hands. Sometimes, if you're working too closely to the center point of the disc, the velocity and tension of the grit hitting the cup from every point instead of just one, where the grit is moving up in a line rather than swirling around on the bottom. Having it in the middle like that can knock it right out of your hands as well. So you need to be sure that your grip is firm and widespread over the entire piece, meaning that you hold it in a balanced manner. Don't hold it on one side only, but grip it with both hands on opposite sides, holding both the top and the center as well. Now, my posture is the same as it would be for throwing. I'm sitting as close to the wheel as my body and chair will allow, and I'm anchored in my hips with my elbows, leaning into the piece rather than allowing my arm strength and steadiness to do all the work. Now, as I grind closer and closer to the mug body, I want to keep an eye on how short the handle nubs are getting because I will need to switch the disc over to the 400 side. You want to wait a while to do this so that you don't have to grind quite as long. But you want to make sure that you switch before you get within maybe 1/4 of an inch.
A few inches later.
Because the rougher grit can actually cause the piece or its glaze to chip, and then you've got bigger problems.
One eternity later.
This really is as low as I want to go with these handle nubs, so I'm going to give the base a little light sanding to get rid of a little chip that's in the bottom, and it'll feel like new again. I am gripping the mug from the top rim and leaning into the piece lightly, making sure that my pressure downwards is as evenly distributed as possible. And then to correct this little chip on the bottom, I'm going to swirl it around on the disc so it creates this smooth, rounded edge instead of something flat and sharp, which is what I'd get if I held it still. Once finished with the piece, make sure to thoroughly clean the grinding disc and set it somewhere with ample space to dry on both sides. This is important so it doesn't rust and weaken the usability of the disc itself. Then be sure to wash the piece thoroughly, as the silica dust is liable to be on the piece and can go airborne when dry, allowing it to be breathed in. Silicosis is a real and very serious danger to your health and those around you. Always be sure to take the proper safety precautions as well as cleaning things with water using a mop or a rag to wipe things down after you're finished. Now that PSA is done, I think this video is finished as well. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. If you have any questions, snarks, or witty remarks, go ahead and drop me a comment down below. I will always try to get back to you. Again, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you like sewing because next week's video is about that. So not a regular pottery tutorial next time, but I think you'll have a lot of fun. I guess that's it for today, but I'll see you in the next one. And until then, stay creative, my friends.